It's not like you're aware of it. It's not like you like know what's going on, because you get into life, you get into this physical world, we're in these physical bodies, and we're having these physical experiences, and then we're having the physical stresses of this world buying all of our belief systems. I am sharing something with you that I think is profoundly helped me as an artist, and what I do as an artist, and how I became a selling artist, and how I overcome some of these things, and how I overcame these things. And so I wanted to share it with you. You might be in that spot. You might have been in that spot before. You might be in that spot and not even realize, oh my gosh, I also forgot this secret, or this tip, or this, do you want to even call it a secret? And yet this is the number one thing we all forget, is this thing that makes us great creators, great artists. Might not even be physical art. It could be writing art. It could be music art. Oh, okay. Stop everything you're doing. If you like my videos, and if you are familiar with the Art and Garden channel, my name is ArtEttina if you don't know me. The subscribe button is here. And I hear the bell thing does things. You can click that too while you're busy at it. And also, you know, if you appreciate what I shared with you today, leave a comment. I mean, this affects everybody. So it's just one of those things that we forget. And so where I'm going with this, back to going with this, where we started. So the number one thing that I want to get to, and I want to get to it in the right way so it really has the fullest, you have the fullest understanding and fullest impact. This applies to music. This applies to any type of creative process, uninhibited creative process. Okay, this is what this artist, like, rule and secret or tip, whatever you want to call it. Now, wherever I learned this stage block, okay, so when I was really, really young, the first things I even remember about my creative process is people noticing my work, that people noticed what I was doing, because I was always doing something. You know, all of a sudden, you can imagine, and I'm sure this happened with a lot of you too, all of a sudden it's not just you and related to you, but you now have influences and stages. So now you're going to believe things. Now I became biased. One of the things from wherever I learned it was, if you were a really great artist, you knew how to paint in oil, that particular medium, and what the art world was selling at that time, and what the art world was pushing, which was not realism at the time, and it wasn't other art forms. I mean, maybe some sculpting, and even sculpting, the first thing that drops into your mind is what? Bronze sculpting. Or that was my reality, the things that I was exposed to. Just as an example, and oil painting, what I call now, no offense to oil painters, because I paint in oil, so I would be offending myself. But I became an oil painting snob. And what I mean by that is I didn't do anything else. I mean, a little bit of drawing, some preliminary sketching, maybe, preliminary ideas, maybe. But I was an oil painter. My ego and a self-identification of my physical being in this physical world was encapsulated into, you're now an oil painter. Why? It's because I wanted the satisfaction of other people believing I was a great artist. Because if I really thought about it, if I was really going to be honest, if I was really going to be honest with you, be honest with myself. Now at the time, I don't think I got that little stinkiness. At the time, it was just what I wanted. It was the ego speaking. It was the ego creating. It was the ego doing things. It was the ego of this earth. It was not my true, what I was born with, identity. That's why I started with the childhood. Now I'm jumping up. Because I was losing the secret. And here's how here's an indicator of when you know you've lost it, is artist block, not being able to create, getting so upset and frustrated with not being where you want to be, which we're always going to have that next level. So this is also a false parameter. It's one of the belief systems that's an actual really big key for you. And everybody knows this one, which is only put your best work forward. Now, I'm not going to argue with artists who say, of course, only put your best work forward, because I'm not judging them. I totally understand it. I was totally there. one of the things that I let go of, which is, you know what? I'm not just going to create. I'm just going to create and have fun and enjoy it again and explore. And I didn't even know if I still wanted to do oil. What makes oil so much better than the other mediums? It's just a medium. It's just materials. It's just what, and all of a sudden I was doing resin sculptures. And I don't mean like resin sculptures with molds. I mean, if you've seen some of the stuff I used to do, I don't do very much of it now, which is resin sculptures with clay. It's total mixed media of these animals coming out of the resin, and I started creating again. This got my palette wet for other things. I started buying watercolors. I'm the only one judging myself, really, ultimately, because if I listen to other people judging me, I'm never going to be able to satisfy the whole world, ever, and neither are you. And I think that I'm hoping people are getting this. Here's the number one thing, and then I'm going to kind of pile it into how it completely changed my life and my work. What artists forget, we know it, but we forget it, is the number one art rule, which is to paint. Actually, there was an artist, I don't have the accent. Okay, Picasso figured it out. And matter of fact, it was an article from him that I was like, that's interesting. That's all I gave it to it, because that's as deep as they went. That's very interesting that he says to return to the child within you and to paint from there. And that's not word for word. I don't even know if you can find the article. And I'm like, that's interesting. But now I get it. Now I get it, because this is how I got it. So I started creating, and I started making available to people everything. You know, the different forms that I sell and or whatever. It's everything. So you might be like looking at some of my realistic work, or looking at my cats, or looking at, you know, some of my landscapes and going, oh, that's really cool. What the hell is that? And the next piece will be some kind of interesting abstract floral thing with glitter thrown into it. Because here's the thing. I'm not going to let the world and its beliefs about the perimeters of its professionalism inhibit me as what God made me to be. So there must be something right about me. And just like there's something right about you. Just like why limit yourself? How will you know that next thing that you absolutely love that other people are going to be like, wow, if you don't even create from a child's perspective, from pushing things around with your fingers, from painting with your fingers to whatever. So I started doing charcoals again. I started doing drawings again. I started doing watercolors, which I absolutely love. I can't even believe how much I love watercolors. I still do my oil paintings. I create with, I don't know if you can see it behind me, is one of my foam sculptures that's 7 feet tall. All of this, and I'm not done with it. And all of a sudden, the whole creative world opened up to me. Right? It's like creator's block. What's that? It's like, does a 3-year-old, does a 2-year-old have creator's block? No. You know what they have? You know what they have? They got crayons. That's what they got. They got pudding. They got chocolate pudding that makes a cool shape on the table. There's no restriction because there was no parameters. I'm just saying it how it is. Why? So I offer everything in my store. I offer every stage, because you know what? What would you give? What would you give to have every stage of like a Picasso, of like a Salvador Dali, of like, you know what? If all of that stuff, and eventually it did get out, you know, like after they died or whatever, I don't know how people get a hold of these things, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Okay, yeah, that gives me an idea for this. What am I going to do with it? Put it in a file? When somebody out there could enjoy it? I mean, it doesn't matter, because what matters is the creative process is more beautiful than even a final product professionally done to hit a certain high end and I'm not judging it. I know people do that because that's what we're told to do. Be good, only put your best work out there, blah, 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 practice, practice, practice. And all of a sudden it becomes your job, which it is, but in a way, okay, at what point are you no longer the creative process of what the creator made? Which is the number one rule to try not to ever forget, is to come from that perspective. If you can, even as far back as you can remember, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, because all this trauma starts happening around you and starts forming this identity that you're going to take on in this life. You're this perfect soul, and you were so loved and so perfectly made that if you can get that out of you and forget all these parameters, create from your heart, create what you want, just create. So anyway, that's what I wanted to wrap this up with. That's the number one thing that artists, as an artist and as a creator, period, that we continually forget. Think like a kid. Think like a 1-year-old. Think like an 18-month-old who just was shown their first crayon and what it can do. And go out there and look for mediums, test mediums, push paint around with your fingers. Just create. Create. And test them and get out straws and blow your paint around on the paper. Get your hairdryer. Do something funky with that. I see people doing things with hairdryers. I don't use a hairdryer. The freedom of just going, I'm going to create. If the world loves it or people love it, great. If people hate it, great. If people want to judge it or criticize it, fine. Because I'm still a creator and I'm still going to create things and find people who understand what I'm saying because it touches them somehow. We're ageless, timeless souls, and to lose and to believe the world and our restrictions and parameters rather than just accept that we're creative, amazing, powerful souls that should be creating. We're creating our world, creating our atmosphere, creating love, creating compassion, creating empathy, loving one another, encouraging one another, and seeing what that makes. It's like the most beautiful rule ever. Return to your childhood. And what would and you're going to learn your values and you're going to learn your color theories, because how can you not learn and how can you not get better if every day you're creating, whether it's just drawing, whether it's just pulling out some watercolors and playing with them, whether it's painting with your coffee, whether it's whatever it is, and it doesn't even have to be a visual, right? Whatever it is, just get on your violin and play some notes, have some fun, play, your bass, play with your drums. You don't have to, it's play. It's play. It's be that kid again and play and stop listening to the world. I don't care, because there's such little, I'm here for a very short period of time to love people, to care about people, and to create. That is what I'm here for. And if people get that, from my art, great. If they don't get it, oh well, thanks for stopping by. Let go and be you, because there's no one on this planet like you. You are incredibly loved and incredibly valuable. And every stage, every mistake, every non-perfect piece is something that you made, that came through you, and that has some value. It has some value. And so I have pieces that nobody's bought, whatever, okay, move on. And I take what I like from it and I go to the next thing. You can't think about that as far, because you'll overthink it. You got to create, and you got to be that kid again. It's all good. It's all perfect. It's all okay. And there are people out there who are going to like where you go with that. And we're all connected. So I'm just saying, less judgment, less chaos, less parameter. The golden ratio thing that our mind is really attracted to. That's why we love flowers and things of certain patterns, is the golden ratio. And you'll learn these basic things, and you can't not learn them when all you're doing is creating. There's certain things that people have already used to get there quicker, of where you might want to go, or little skills you can use. And that's why we watch other artists, and that's why we listen to each other. That's why we communicate like this. How do I create all the time, whether it's art painting or not, whether it's growing plants or whatever? I'm even creating ideas, like you're even creating ideas right now. So how do you do that all the time and not with criticism or judgment or whatever get blocked? Is you just know deep down inside that's the way you're made. So you do it, and you have fun doing it, and you remember what it was like to be a kid doing it. That's the number one secret. Remember what it was like being a kid doing it without all these parameters going on, without all these judgments going on. And you will be your worst critic and your worst judge, and you'll always want to move to the next stage. So don't get frustrated by it. Stop for years. There's times when I'd stop for years because I'd just be so pissed off, like, I'm just never going to be good enough. It's just something it's just noise. It's just noise. It doesn't mean anything. Go with it. I hope it's helpful. I hope you understand. Have a wonderful, amazing week. Enjoy your December. Happy holidays.